What if the only thing standing between you and your dream life is the way you think? What if every limitation you've accepted, every realistic expectation you've settled for, every reason you've given yourself for why success belongs to other people, what if all of that is just outdated mental programming that you can change right now? Here's a controversial truth that's going to shake up everything you think you know about manifestation. You don't need to wait for circumstances to change before you can think differently. You need to think differently before circumstances can change. Most people have it completely backwards. They're waiting for evidence before they'll believe in their potential, waiting for success before they'll think like successful people, waiting for abundance before they'll adopt an abundant mindset. But here's what the most magnetic, successful people know. Your external reality is just a reflection of your internal frequency. When you start thinking like the version of you that has it all, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around this new information. The moment you truly grasp this, the moment you realize that your thoughts aren't just random mental chatter, but actual creative forces shaping your experience, everything changes. Because you're not just learning a new technique today, you're discovering the secret to becoming someone who naturally attracts what they desire instead of someone who constantly chases what they lack. There's this magical moment that happens when you're sitting there, maybe scrolling through social media, seeing everyone else living their dream life, and something inside you just shifts. It's not dramatic, it's not lightning striking, it's more like a gentle awakening where you realize you've been thinking small for way too long. That's the turning point where your brain starts entertaining possibilities it used to dismiss as unrealistic or not for people like me. It's when you stop accepting limitations as facts and start questioning why you believed them in the first place. The beautiful thing about this moment is that it doesn't require permission from anyone, not your family, not your circumstances, not even your past mistakes. Most people miss this turning point because they're waiting for some grand revelation or external validation to give them permission to think differently. But here's what I've learned from studying the most successful manifestors. They didn't wait for conditions to be perfect before they started thinking like their future self. They made the conscious choice to think like your future self first, and then reality began reorganizing itself around that new mental frequency. This isn't about delusional positive thinking. This is about recognizing that your thoughts are literally the blueprint for your experience, and you get to choose what you're building. The ripple effect of this decision is absolutely mind-blowing because once you give yourself permission to think differently, everything starts to shift. Your daily decisions change because you're making them from a different identity. Your conversations change because you're speaking from a new level of possibility. Even your body language transforms because you're carrying yourself like someone who expects good things to happen. This is where manifest through mindset becomes not just a concept, but a lived experience, when your thoughts align with your highest potential and your entire energy signature broadcasts that frequency to the world. Your thoughts aren't just mental chatter floating around in your head, they're actual frequencies vibrating through the quantum field, creating an energetic blueprint that the universe uses to construct your reality. Think about it. Every invention, every breakthrough, every transformation in human history started as a thought in someone's mind. When you understand that your thinking literally shapes your energetic signature, you realize you're not just daydreaming, you're architecting your future. Scientists are now proving what mystics have known for centuries. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it actively participates in creating it through the frequencies we broadcast. Here's where it gets really fascinating. When you consistently think like your future self, you're essentially tuning your personal radio station to a completely different frequency. Instead of broadcasting scarcity, doubt, and limitation, you're transmitting abundance, confidence, and possibility. The universe, being the perfect receiver that it is, starts sending you experiences that match your new signal. This is why some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities, while others struggle despite working twice as hard. They're simply operating on different frequencies. Your thoughts create electromagnetic fields that interact with the quantum field of infinite possibilities, and those interactions become your lived experience. The most successful people I know treat their thoughts like sacred real estate. They're incredibly selective about what they allow to take up space in their minds. They understand that every thought is either moving them closer to their dreams or pulling them back toward their limitations. They don't just hope for abundance, they think abundant thoughts so consistently that abundance becomes their natural state of being. This is the core of identity shift manifestation, when your thinking aligns so completely with your desired reality that there's no gap between who you are and what you want to experience. Most people don't realize they've been trapped in an invisible prison, a mental cage built from outdated beliefs about who they are and what's possible for them. This identity gap is like wearing clothes that are 5 sizes too small. You're constantly uncomfortable, restricted, and unable to move freely into your full potential. Your current mindset was probably formed during childhood or during moments of pain and limitation, but you've been carrying it around like it's some permanent truth about who you are. The version of you that created your current problems simply can't be the same version that creates your solutions. This gap shows up in the most subtle ways, like when you dream about financial freedom but automatically calculate tips based on scarcity, or when you visualize love but still feel unworthy when someone compliments you. Your subconscious is running programs that were installed when you were 7, afraid or heartbroken, and those programs are completely out of alignment with who you're becoming. The beautiful thing about recognizing this identity gap is that awareness itself begins to dissolve it. You can't unsee what you've seen, and once you realize you've been thinking from an outdated version of yourself, you can't help but start upgrading. Breaking free from this mental prison isn't about fighting your old thoughts. It's about gently but firmly choosing new ones. When you catch yourself thinking from limitation, you simply redirect to possibility. When you notice scarcity creeping in, you consciously choose abundance. This isn't toxic positivity, this is conscious evolution. You're literally rewiring your brain to operate from your highest potential instead of your lowest fear. Every time you think like your future self instead of your past self, you're casting a vote for who you're becoming. And eventually, those votes add up to a landslide transformation that changes everything. The internal dialogue of someone who has it all is completely different from the chatter of someone who's still struggling. They don't spend mental energy convincing themselves they deserve good things, they simply expect them. They don't hope their dreams will work out, they make decisions as if success is inevitable. When they face challenges, they don't ask, "Why me?" They ask, "How is this helping me grow?" This shift in inner dialogue isn't just positive thinking, it's a complete rewiring of how they process reality. Their thoughts flow from certainty rather than desperation, from abundance rather than lack. You can literally train yourself to adopt this new internal language by paying attention to how your future self would think in any given situation. When your current self might think, "I can't afford this," your future self thinks, "How can I create the money for this?" When your current self thinks, "This never works for me," your future self thinks, "What can I learn from this to make it work?" This isn't about fake optimism. It's about asking better questions and expecting better outcomes, because that's simply how successful people think. Their minds are wired for solutions, opportunities, and possibilities rather than problems, obstacles, and limitations. The language of your future self becomes your new operating system, and like any software upgrade, it makes everything run more smoothly and efficiently. When you think like your future self consistently, you start making decisions from that elevated perspective, which naturally leads to elevated results. You stop second-guessing yourself because doubt isn't part of your new internal vocabulary. You start taking inspired action because procrastination doesn't exist in the mind of someone who knows their success is guaranteed. This is how identity shift manifestation works. You literally become the person who naturally attracts what you desire by adopting their way of thinking first. Mental rehearsal is like having a private theater in your mind where you get to practice being successful, abundant, and fulfilled before it shows up in your physical reality. Olympic athletes have been using this technique for decades because they understand that your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you spend time each day mentally experiencing your desired reality, feeling the emotions, seeing the scenes, hearing the conversations, you're literally programming your nervous system to expect and attract those experiences. This isn't just wishful thinking or daydreaming. This is serious mental training that rewires your neural pathways for success. Think about it. If you can mentally rehearse failure and limitation, which most people do unconsciously, why not deliberately rehearse success and abundance? When you consistently imagine yourself thriving in your dream life, your brain starts to normalize those experiences, making them feel familiar rather than foreign. Your subconscious begins to see your desired reality as normal rather than impossible, which completely changes how you show up in the world. The key is to make these mental rehearsals as vivid and detailed as possible. Imagine the textures, the sounds, the emotions, even the smells of your manifested life. See yourself waking up in your dream home. Feel the satisfaction of checking your abundant bank account. Experience the joy of meaningful work that lights you up. The more real you make it in your mind, the more your body begins to embody that reality energetically. This is where manifest through mindset becomes incredibly powerful, when your mental rehearsals are so consistent and vivid that your entire being starts vibrating at the frequency of your desires. When your thoughts align perfectly with your desired identity and you maintain that alignment consistently, something magical happens. Your thoughts become magnetic. It's as if you're broadcasting a signal so clear and strong that the universe can't help but respond with matching experiences, opportunities, and synchronicities. This isn't mystical thinking, it's energetic science. Your consistent thought patterns create coherent electromagnetic fields that interact with the quantum field in ways that literally magnetize your desires toward you. Think about the most successful people you know. They don't just think positive thoughts occasionally, they have unshakable self-belief that radiates from every cell of their being. When they walk into a room, people can feel their confidence. When they speak, others listen because there's power behind their words. When they take action, results seem to flow effortlessly because their energy is so aligned with success that failure isn't even in their energetic vocabulary. This magnetic quality isn't something they were born with, it's something they developed by consistently thinking and feeling from their highest potential. This energetic magnetism creates ripple effects that extend far beyond what you can see or measure. People start treating you differently because they're responding to your new energy signature. Opportunities begin appearing in the most unexpected places because you're now vibrationally aligned with possibility rather than limitation. Money flows more easily because you're no longer energetically pushing it away with thoughts of unworthiness or scarcity. Love shows up more naturally because you're radiating the frequency of someone who knows they're lovable. This is the real power of self-belief. It doesn't just change how you feel about yourself, it changes how reality responds to you. The big transformations aren't built from grand gestures. They're constructed from thousands of tiny decisions that either align you with your future self or keep you trapped in your past self. Every micro-decision is like casting a vote for who you're becoming, and these votes accumulate until they reach a tipping point where your entire reality shifts. When you choose the thoughts your future self would think, when you speak the words they would speak, when you take the actions they would take, you're essentially becoming them, one choice at a time. These micro-decisions show up everywhere. How you respond to setbacks, what you choose to focus on during challenging moments, how you treat yourself when you make mistakes, what standards you set for your relationships and opportunities. Your future self handles money differently than your current self. So when you make financial decisions from abundance consciousness rather than scarcity fear, you're anchoring that new identity. Your future self speaks differently. So when you catch yourself complaining and choose gratitude instead, you're strengthening those new neural pathways. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it makes transformation feel manageable rather than overwhelming. You don't have to completely reinvent yourself overnight, you just have to make slightly better choices moment by moment. Each time you think like your future self instead of your past self, each time you act from possibility instead of limitation, each time you choose expansion over contraction, you're building momentum toward your desired reality. This is how identity shift manifestation becomes a natural, sustainable process rather than a forced, exhausting struggle. Once you truly start thinking like it's already done, not hoping, not wishing, not trying to convince the universe, but genuinely thinking from the place of having already achieved your desires, reality can't help but shift to match your new frequency. This is the ultimate level of manifest through mindset, where you're no longer chasing your dreams because you're already living them mentally and energetically. You're not trying to become someone different, you're simply being who you've always been at the highest level of your potential. This shift from wanting to being, from hoping to knowing, from trying to allowing, creates an unstoppable momentum that transforms everything in your experience. When you think from completion rather than lack, when you make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity, when you move through the world as someone who naturally attracts good things, the universe has no choice but to provide evidence that matches your new energetic signature. You stop being surprised by good fortune because you expect it, and you stop being devastated by temporary setbacks because you know they're just course corrections on your inevitable path to success. The most powerful realization is that your future self isn't some distant version of you that you might become someday. They exist right now in the quantum field of infinite possibilities, and they're accessible to you in any moment you choose to align with their frequency. When you think like them, feel like them, and act like them consistently, you literally become them. The gap between who you are and who you want to be dissolves completely, and you discover that you were never separate from your dreams. You were just thinking from the wrong identity. So here's my challenge for you, and I want you to really feel this in your bones. What would happen if you started thinking like the version of you that has it all? Not tomorrow when you feel more ready, not next week when conditions improve, but right here, right now, in this very moment. What thoughts would naturally flow through your mind if you knew, beyond any shadow of doubt, that your dream life was not only possible, but absolutely inevitable? How would you make decisions today if you genuinely believed you were someone who naturally attracts success, abundance, love, and fulfillment? I want to know, what's the very first thought pattern you're ready to upgrade right now? What's one way of thinking that clearly belongs to your future self that you're finally ready to adopt and embody? Drop your commitment in the comments below, because your breakthrough might be exactly the inspiration someone else needs to finally shift their own mindset and step into their power. Your transformation ripples out and gives others permission to transform too. And listen, if something just shifted for you while hearing these words, if you felt that unmistakable spark of recognition that says, "This is exactly what I've been missing," then you absolutely cannot miss what's coming up next on your screen. Because I'm about to reveal the exact daily practices and specific techniques that lock in this new way of thinking permanently and turn temporary mindset shifts into unshakable identity transformation. This is how you make thinking like your future self your new default operating system, rather than just a peak moment experience. Don't let this moment of clarity and possibility slip away into the background of your busy life. Your breakthrough depends entirely on the choice you make right now, in this moment, about who you're going to be from this point forward. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because your journey to think like your future self and manifest through mindset is just beginning, and I have so much more profound wisdom to share with you about turning your identity shift manifestation into your permanent lived reality.